Big right hand. Elkins is down.
This might be
Volkanovski looking to finish it. Herzog standing by, giving Elkins every benefit of the doubt. Where's the horn? They go to the grounds.
Are you ready to hear an inspiring story about a former rugby player who went through an incredible transformation? Meet Alexander Volkanovski, the man who lost a whopping 30 kilograms and became a champion. Despite his remarkable achievements, this Aussie athlete hasn't quite caught the public's eye. But don't let that fool you. Volkanovski's journey is packed with fascinating facts and thrilling battles. And today, we're here to share it all with you. Get ready to be amazed. Let's dive deeper into Alexander Volkanovski's background and uncover the origins of his impressive strength. Born in Shoal Harbor in '88, Volkanovski was raised in a family of immigrants. His father, a concreter from Macedonia, and his Greek mother instilled in him and his brother a passion for arm wrestling. They quickly became the arm wrestling champs of their small town, thanks to their raw power and Greco-Roman wrestling skills. At just 12 years old, Volkanovski won the national championship, the first of many titles he would achieve. But he didn't stop there. At 14, he switched to rugby and quickly rose to the top, becoming the best player in the Southern Coast League. Eventually, he made it to the Premier League finals, where he also secured the #1 spot. After his rugby career ended, a friend invited him to an MMA training camp, and the rest, as they say, is history. Volkanovski's transition to MMA wasn't easy, but it was fueled by his natural grit and determination. Alongside a friend, he started training at the freestyle kickboxing gym under the watchful eye of Joe, a local trainer. Despite his smaller size, Volkanovski quickly made a name for himself in sparring sessions, taking down much larger opponents. He attributed this to his rugby training, which taught him to be tough and unafraid of getting hit. After a few months of training, Joe offered him the chance to prepare for a real fight, and Volkanovski jumped at the opportunity. His MMA debut came in amateur tournaments, where he competed at middleweight and won every fight by knockout. His first opponent was Peter Smolders, a name that would soon be forgotten in the wake of Volkanovski's meteoric rise. Volkanovski's dominance in the amateur ranks was truly something to behold. Despite his smaller frame, he managed to overpower opponents with ease. He quickly made a name for himself by finishing his fights on the ground, leaving his opponents no chance to recover. In fact, his next opponent didn't even last a full round against him. Volkanovski's strength and skill were on full display, and it was clear that he was destined for great things. When he made the leap to the professional ranks, he started out in the welterweight division, weighing in at 77 kilograms. He won a couple of Australian titles early on, but in his fourth fight, he ran into a major obstacle. Karen Elson, an experienced middleweight. Despite his best efforts, Volkanovski couldn't overcome the size disadvantage and ultimately lost by technical knockout. But this setback would only fuel his drive to become a better fighter. After his loss, Alexander Volkanovski knew he had to make some changes. He decided to focus on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and quickly became the Australian champion in the 85-kilogram weight category. But even standing on the podium, he realized that he needed to lose weight and fight opponents his own size. This was easier said than done, as it required a responsible approach to his weight. He had to learn this the hard way, with 6 fights in the lightweight division before finally dropping to the 66-kilogram category. Even then, he had to drop 7 kilograms in one day before his featherweight debut. The weight cut was brutal, leaving him exhausted and vowing never to repeat the experience. Despite this, he still managed to knock out his opponent in less than 4 minutes, proving that his punching power remained intact. But he knew he couldn't continue this way and changed his approach to nutrition, ultimately settling at a healthier weight of 75 kilograms. Alexander Volkanovski's pursuit of becoming a world-class fighter led him to the prestigious Tiger Muay Thai gym in Thailand. He turned to his fellow countrymen for help, and almost 200 people, including Australian rugby players, came together to support him at a fundraiser. Alexander's life took a complete turn since then, as he now dedicates his entire schedule to training. He promised his wife that he would make it to the top promotion in the world before their first child was born, and ran a social media campaign with the hashtag #SignVolkanovski every time there was a tournament. Despite all his efforts, he felt guilty for breaking his promise when his son Oleg was born. Picture a young Volkanovski stepping into the ring with an impressive record of 9 wins and just 1 loss. His opponent, the reigning champion James Bishop, had a fight on his hands. But from the very beginning of the fight, Bishop seemed helpless, as Volkanovski quickly took him down and beat him on the ground. The match only lasted a minute, and Volkanovski emerged victorious, earning himself the title of local promotion champion. After a year, Volkanovski was up against the undefeated fighter Jamie Mullarkey for his title defense. Mullarkey had a spotless record of 8 wins, but he was no match for Volkanovski's incredible takedowns and powerful strikes. The former rugby player had evolved from a classic wrestler into a fierce striker, showing his opponents a well-rounded skill set.
Volkanovski is knocked out! Jamie Mullarkey! Volkanovski is knocked out! Jamie Mullarkey!
Alexander Volkanovski has won 5 regional titles and 8 fights, but he was yet to make it on the big stage. His chance to compete on a bigger platform came when a fighter dropped out of a tournament in Brisbane, Australia. The organizers chose him as a replacement, but they reached out to his previous manager, who was no longer representing him. The manager told them that Volkanovski wouldn't be able to compete, but luck was on his side, and he soon found a major sponsor who provided financial support. Within a week, he joined the Ultimate Fighting Championship (UFC) roster and made his debut on the main card in Melbourne against Tucker Branson. It felt strange for Volkanovski to be called the Hulk while fighting in the lightweight division because his father was Macedonian and his mother was Greek. So, he searched for a new nickname that draws on his historical roots, and he ultimately chose the Great in honor of Alexander the Great. In his debut fight at the Ultimate Fighting Championship, Alexander Volkanovski had the support of around 200 Australian fans. Things didn't start off well, as his opponent, Yuki Kasuya, took him down early in the first round. But Alexander refused to back down and fought back hard against the fence, with the crowd roaring in support. In the second round, the Aussie fighter came out even more determined and took control of the fight, ultimately winning the match. Volkanovski continued to climb the ranks, and in his next fight, he took on the 15th-ranked featherweight Darren Elkins. Alexander put on a dominant performance, outstriking Elkins en route to a unanimous decision victory.
Alexander the Great!
He followed that up with a second-round TKO win over Jeremy Kennedy, a fighter who had never been finished before. With each victory, Volkanovski's confidence grew, and he knew he was inching closer to a title shot. Alexander Volkanovski's success was no fluke, and he continued to prove that in the United States in 2018. After 4 fights at Australian tournaments, he made his debut in the United States against Darren Elkins. The Australian fighter was on a 6-fight win streak, with his most recent victory being a chokehold against Michael Johnson. Alexander Volkanovski continued his winning streak as he fought Darren Elkins in the US in 2018. At the beginning of the fight, Elkins allowed Volkanovski to advance freely, and a prepared takedown almost cost him the fight. After being taken down, Elkins returned to a standing position, but Volkanovski began to dominate and had some close finishes. However, he couldn't finish Elkins before the American recovered and equalized. Despite this, Volkanovski secured a convincing victory with 2 takedowns and accurate and powerful strikes that played in his favor. Chad Mendes sought a fight with Alexander after his return from disqualification, and the company granted him the opportunity. From the very start, Alexander was charged up and pressed his opponent hard, causing Chad to miss frequently. Chad attempted to take control by taking Alexander down, but couldn't keep him on the ground, and Alexander gradually gained the upper hand. However, a knockout by Volkanovski resulted in Chad retiring from MMA. Which was a heavy blow for Chad. Alexander made a name for himself in the lightweight division and established himself as a force to be reckoned with. Alexander, a rising star in the lightweight division, faced off against Jose Aldo, who was eager to redeem himself after 2 recent losses. The match was held in Rio, Brazil, and it was a back-and-forth battle that resembled a chess game. Alexander scored points with his many kicks, while Jose relied on his punches. In the second round, Alexander picked up the pace and started unleashing a flurry of attacks on Jose, putting the former champ on the defensive. By the third round, Alexander was in full control, landing more punches and kicks with ease. It was no surprise when all the judges scored the fight 30-27 in Alexander's favor. With this impressive victory, Alexander cemented his status as a top contender in the lightweight division, and the world eagerly awaited his next fight.
Alexander the Great!
During the flight, Alexander began to feel unwell, with his legs swelling and turning red, followed by a fever. The plane had to land in Chile, where Alexander received medical assistance. It turned out that an infection in his leg was progressing rapidly, causing a hole in his body. Had he decided to take the next flight, the damage could have been too great, potentially leading to the loss of his leg or even his life. Luckily, Alexander was able to receive the necessary treatment in time and recover from this dangerous situation. After 7 victories, Volkanovski earned the right to fight for the title against Max Holloway, the Hawaiian champion who was considered the favorite. However, the challenger shocked the crowd by coming closer in scoring points, while also using low kicks as an important tool to impact the judges. Although Holloway began landing shots towards the end of the second round, the first 2 rounds still went to Volkanovski. In the third round, the challenger continued to attack and maintained his power and accuracy in combinations. The champion evened the fight in the fourth round, but it was too late. In the final 5-minute round, it became clear that the challenger had lost some speed, but he had already done enough to win the judges over. Alexander Volkanovski ended the 14-fight win streak of the division and became the second Australian champion after Robert Whittaker. Even after becoming the champion, Alexander still trains at his small hometown gym, Freestyle Fighting Gym, under the guidance of his first coach, Joe Lopez. Despite his success, he remains loyal to his roots and still trains at the same gym where he started. When Alexander first walked into Lopez's gym at the age of 22, his coach immediately saw potential in him. Other representatives of various sports had come to train at the gym but encountered problems and left, but Lopez believed that Alexander had what it takes to make it as a UFC fighter. Despite Lopez's confidence in Alexander, the fighter did not forget his coach's guidance and continuously worked to expand his training horizons. He often holds training camps at Australia's most successful gym, City Kickboxing, where he works with his second coach, Eugene Berman, who also trained fighters such as Israel Adesanya and Dan Hooker. In their 251st fight, the champion had a rematch with Max Holloway, who had learned from his previous defeat and started to mix up his strikes. Alexander also worked with low energy expenditures, allowing himself to be hit more often, but frequently targeted the body and head with kicks and combinations. Towards the end of the second round, Max caught him with a spinning back kick, taking the first 2 rounds with only 3.5 minutes each. The champion had to work harder to meet the challenger, including bringing in some wrestling and eventually executed a takedown to even the match. Max started the final round more aggressively, but Volkanovski's reserve of energy was much greater, and he landed more frequently at the last minute. The total number of significant strikes was 139-111 in favor of the champion, and 2 out of 3 judges gave him the victory. Even though the Hawaiian fighter put up a tough fight, Alexander's skills and stamina were simply unmatched, making him a force to be reckoned with in the world of UFC. Alexander Volkanovski continued his UFC journey with a championship defense against Brian Ortega at UFC 266. It was another hard-fought battle, with Ortega presenting multiple submission attempts that Volkanovski skillfully escaped. Despite the difficult challenge, the champion persevered and won the fight via unanimous decision, earning universal praise for his impressive performance. The bout also received the Fight of the Night award, further highlighting the thrilling matchup.
For the winner by unanimous decision and still.
Next up, Volkanovski faced the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung-jung, at UFC 272. The champion demonstrated his dominance in the cage by knocking down his opponent multiple times and winning the fight via TKO in the 4th round, further cementing his position as one of the most skilled featherweights in the world.
Declaring the winner by TKO and still.
The much-anticipated trilogy bout against Max Holloway was rescheduled for July 2, 2022 at UFC 276. In another impressive display of his skills, Volkanovski won the bout via unanimous decision, with all three judges scoring the fight 50-45. The victory marked his third triumph over Holloway, solidifying his place as one of the greatest featherweights in UFC history. Alexander Volkanovski's next challenge is set to be a highly anticipated match against the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev at UFC 284. Fans are eager to see the outcome of this bout and whether the champion can continue his streak of success in the UFC.
I want to get back in. I said I was going to stay active. Just because I pulled up short tonight, that doesn't change a thing. I'm a man of my word.
As we await this exciting event, be sure to stay tuned for more updates on this matchup and other MMA-related content. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling updates and insights into the world of mixed martial arts.
Rip into the body, drops him.
That's it.
Alexander the Great has arrived.
Huge.
Wow.
Alexander Volkanovski.